The one belief that's secretly controlling your entire life has been with you since the beginning. It hides in your choices, steering what you chase and what you abandon without you even knowing it. Every risk you avoid, every ceiling you hit, traces back to its silent influence. Most people never see it, and because of that, they stay trapped in a life smaller than it should be. But you're about to expose ITAN to do that. You first need to see how something invisible can pull every string. Chapter 1. The Invisible Hand. You wake up each morning believing you're the one in control. You pick your clothes. You decide what to eat. You choose where to go, who to call, what to do with your time. On the surface, it feels like freedom. You tell yourself, these are my choices. This is my life. But deep down, beneath the surface of every decision, something else is at work. There's a force you don't see, an invisible hand guiding you. It doesn't shout. It whispers. It doesn't block your path with walls. It quietly nudges you away from certain doors before you even realize they were there. It is not random. It is not chance. It's a belief. A single unspoken belief that has been running in the background of your mind for years, like a line of hidden code in a program. Think about it. The job you didn't apply for, the person you didn't approach, the dream you once had but buried each time. You told yourself it was logic. You said, it wasn't realistic. It wasn't the right time. I wasn't ready. But in truth, those weren't decisions made in freedom. They were decisions already filtered, already shaped, already limited by this one belief. Here's the part that stings. You almost never notice it happening. You assume your limits are natural. You assume your hesitation is reasonable. You assume your fears are justified, but they're not. The walls you see around you are not real. They're illusions, constructed brick by this hidden belief, until one day you don't even try to step past them. And the payoff, the gut punch, is this. The life you're living right now, the life you call yours, is not fully yours at all. It's a version of life, carefully edited, cut down, shrunk to size by a belief you never asked for, a belief you never questioned, a belief you may not even know you carry. Your career choices, your relationships, the way you look at yourself in the mirror, all of it has been bent and reshaped by this invisible hand. So let me ask you something. If you didn't choose this belief, if it's been pulling strings in your life all along, then who did? To answer that, you need to look back at where the script first began. Chapter 2, the script you never chose. When you enter this world, you didn't come carrying beliefs about yourself. You didn't arrive with fear. You didn't arrive with limitations. You didn't even arrive knowing what was possible or impossible. You came here like a blank page, wide open, unmarked, unshaped. Every possibility was in front of you. Every path was unwritten. But slowly, line by line, that blank page began to fill. And here's the part most people never realize. You weren't holding the pen. Other people were. Think about the earliest voices you ever heard. A parent telling you to be careful, to calm down, to stop crying, to stop running, to stop reaching. A teacher telling you to stay in line, to sit still, to follow instructions. A coach telling you that you weren't fast enough, strong enough, talented enough. These voices weren't just sounds in the air. They were instructions. And because you were young, because you didn't know better, you accepted them. You let them sink into your mind until they became part of how you saw yourself. It didn't always sound cruel. Sometimes it sounded protective. Don't get your hopes up. Not everyone is meant to do that. Be realistic. These words were delivered as advice, as guidance, maybe even as love, but each one was a seed planted deep inside you. Seeds that would grow into invisible barriers. Seeds that would one day tell you what you can and cannot do, who you can and cannot be. And then there was the culture around you. The shows you watched, the rules you absorbed without even realizing it. The stories about who succeeds and who doesn't, about what kind of people make it and what kind of people don't. Maybe you grew up hearing that money was evil, that ambition was selfish, that risk was reckless. Maybe you were told to keep your head down, not to stand out, not to draw too much attention. These weren't lessons you asked for. They were programmed into you. They became the background music of your life. And slowly over the years, you stopped noticing the difference between you and the script that was written for you. You didn't realize that when you said, "That's just who I am," what you really meant was, "That's the story I've been told so many times that I now believe it's me." When you said, "I could never do that," it wasn't a fact. It was a line from someone else's script, handed to you before you even had a chance to question it. Here's where the tension builds. This script runs deeper than you think. It doesn't just influence your choices in obvious ways. It hides in the shadows of your hesitation. It shows up in the way you hold yourself back before you even try. It shows up in the way you lower your voice in a room, in the way you second guess your instincts, in the way you shrink your dreams down to something that feels practical. It whispers to you when you're alone. It silences you before the world ever has a chance to judge you and to pay off the part that should stop you cold as this. Much of the life you're living right now is not truly yours. It's borrowed. It's inherited. It's a collage of other people's voices, other people's fears, other people's limitations stitched together and handed to you like a costume you never wanted to wear. You've been carrying someone else's story and calling it your identity. That's why, deep down, so many people feel a quiet ache, that restless sense that they're meant for more but can't quite explain why they never reach it. It's because they are reading from a script that was handed to them before they could even hold a pen. And until you recognize that script, until you see it for what it is, you'll keep playing the same role, saying the same lines, trapped on the same stage. But here's the twist: the script doesn't hold you down with chains you can see. It doesn't need to. It holds you with illusions. Illusions so subtle they feel like truth. And the first of those illusions is the most seductive of all: the comfort of safety, the silent cage that convinces you that staying where you are is better than reaching for more. Chapter 3. The Silent Cage. There is a cage around you. It doesn't rattle. It doesn't clang shut. It doesn't even look like a cage at all. In fact, it feels warm. It feels safe. It feels comforting. That's why it's so dangerous, because you don't run from it, you rest inside it. This is the cage of certainty. Certainty tells you that life is better when it's predictable, that it's safer when you stick with what you know, that you should cling to the job you don't love because at least the paycheck is steady, that you should hold on to the relationship that's draining you because at least you're not alone. Certainty tells you that trying something new is risky, that stepping out is reckless, that daring to want more is asking for disappointment. And so you stay put, you stay still, you stay in the silent cage. But here's the truth that no one wants to admit: certainty is a lie. The job that feels safe can disappear with one phone call. The routines you cling to can be broken overnight by events you never saw coming. The stability you trade your dreams for isn't real stability. At all, it's just familiar chains. You think you're protecting yourself, but really you're shrinking yourself. Think back on your own life. How many times have you told yourself, "I can't afford to take that risk right now"? How many times have you said, "maybe later, when things are more stable"? Later never comes. Stability never arrives. The silent cage makes sure of it. Because the cage doesn't need to hold you forever. It only needs to convince you that stepping out is dangerous. Once you believe that, you'll stay put for the rest of your life without a single lock on the door. And here's the tension: the silent cage doesn't feel like punishment. It feels like protection. That's why people spend decades inside it. They never call it a cage. They call it being practical. They call it being responsible. They call it being realistic. But underneath those words is the same hidden belief: I am not enough to handle the unknown. That's why you don't step forward. That's why you shrink back. Not because the world is too big, but because the cage has convinced you that you are too small. The payoff is this realization: comfort is not safety. Comfort is the slowest form of death. It keeps you alive on the outside while you're already fading on the inside. And unless you break it, unless you dare to walk out, the silent cage will rob you of every opportunity you'll ever wish you had taken. But comfort is only one illusion. There is another, and it runs even deeper. It doesn't just hold you back from stepping forward, it convinces you that you can't step forward at all. And that illusion hides inside the very story you tell yourself about who you are. Chapter 4. The story you keep believing there's. A voice in your head that sounds like you. It doesn't shout, it doesn't argue, it just repeats itself quietly, endlessly, until it feels like the truth. You've heard it so many times you don't even notice it anymore. I've never been good at that. I'm just not the type of person who can do that. That's not me. These words may feel like harmless descriptions, but they're not. They are commands. They are boundaries. They are the story you keep believing in. That story is shaping your entire life. Every human being carries a personal story, a narrative, a script that explains who you are, how far you can go, and where you must stop. And here's the dangerous part: that story doesn't come from pure truth. Most of the time, it comes from old wounds. It comes from moments of pain that burn themselves into your memory. It comes from the words of people who didn't see your full potential, or worse, didn't want you to see it either. Think back. Maybe as a child you tried something bold, only to hear, "Stop showing off." Maybe you brought home a dream, and someone laughed, telling you, "People like us don't do things like that." Maybe you failed one seat school, at work, in front of others, and in that moment, You didn't just fail, you labeled yourself. You took that single event and made it a headline, "I'm not cut out for this." That headline became your story, and that story became your reality. And here's the tension: you stopped questioning it. Over time, the story blended into your identity. You stopped seeing it as a story and started believing it was you. When you say, "That's just the way I am," you're not speaking the truth. You're repeating a line you picked up long ago. When you say, "I've never been good at this," what you're really saying is, "I once had an experience that convinced me to stop trying." Do you see how subtle it is? The story becomes so familiar that you stop realizing it's optional. This is why your story is so dangerous. It doesn't lock you up with visible chains. It traps you with invisible bars, so you never try to walk past them. You assume your limits are natural. You assume your habits are permanent. You assume your weaknesses are carved into stone. And because you assume it, you don't fight it. You don't test it. You don't push against it. You just live inside it, day after day, year after year, believing the lie. The cruelest part is this: when you believe the story long enough, it becomes self-fulfilling. If you tell yourself you're not good with money, you don't learn how to manage it, and so your finances prove your story right. If you tell yourself you're not creative, you never pick up a pen, a brush, or an instrument, and so your lack of practice proves your story right. If you tell yourself you're not a leader, you step back in moments where you could have stepped forward, and so your silence proves your story right. The belief writes the script, and your life acts it out perfectly. But here's what you need to understand: story is not your identity. It never was. Identity is not fixed. It is not carved in stone. It is clay, and you are holding the hands that can reshape it. The problem is that you've been told for so long that this is who you are that you've forgotten you have the power to change. You've mistaken the mask for your face. You've mistaken the role for your soul. The payoff is this: if your story was written once, it can be rewritten. If it was shaped by the words of others, it can be reshaped by your own. You don't have to keep repeating the same lines, the same limitations, and the same excuses. You can choose a new script. You can declare a new headline. You can decide that old wounds or borrowed voices will not edit the next chapters of your life. But rewriting your story doesn't happen by chance. It doesn't happen just because you wish it would. It requires something deeper. It requires a mental switch so powerful that once you flip it, you'll never see yourself or your life the same way again. Chapter 5. The Mental Switch. Up until now, most of your life has been guided by one quiet question. It's a question you never said out loud, but it hums in the background of almost everything you do. That question is, how do I get through today? You wake up, you think about your responsibilities, your problems, your schedule, your bills, and without even realizing it, your entire focus becomes about surviving the day in front of you. On the surface, that sounds reasonable. Everyone wants to get through the day, but here's the problem: when your mind is trained on survival, you stop aiming at expansion. You stop thinking about growth. You stop asking what's possible. You live in reaction mode instead of creation mode, and slowly, without even noticing it, the belief at the core of your life, "I'm not enough," tightens its grip, because every day becomes about managing, coping, and making it to tomorrow. This is the trap almost everyone falls into. They don't fail because they aren't capable. They fail because they never flip the switch. They never ask the better question. They never rewire the filter that decides how they live their hours. And so their story stays the same. Their identity stays the same. Their results stay the same. The tension builds here because the question you ask yourself daily is not small. It is not harmless. It is not background noise. It is the operating system of your mind. Ask small questions and you live a small life. Ask survival questions and you get survival outcomes. But change the question and you change the code. Change the code and you change everything. The mental switch is this: stop asking, "How do I get through today?" and start asking, "How can I make today matter?" At first, this sounds simple, maybe even too simple, but don't underestimate it. When you ask, "How do I get through today?" your brain scans for the fastest, easiest ways to conserve energy, avoid risk, and stay safe. It keeps you inside the silent cage, trapped by the story you've always believed. But when you ask, "How can I make today matter?" your brain shifts. It scans for opportunities, for meaning, for actions that expand you instead of shrinking you. It forces you to step into growth. And here's the payoff: when you flip this mental switch, the belief begins to crack. Suddenly, you stop living as if you're not enough. Because every day, you look for a way to matter, a way to contribute, a way to grow, a way to create. You stop surviving and start shaping. You stop waiting for life to give you meaning, and you start giving meaning to life. This one shift rewires the story you've been carrying. It dismantles the script you never chose. It weakens the cage of certainty, and it prepares you to face the one belief that has been sitting in the shadows all along, the belief that has been whispering in your ear since the beginning. Because once you flip the switch, you are finally ready for the reveal. Chapter 6, the reveal. You've felt it your whole life, even if you couldn't name it. It's been there in the hesitation before you spoke up, in the second guessing when you had a new idea, in the excuses you made to explain why you didn't take the chance. It's been there in the jobs you stayed in too long, in the relationships you settled for, in the dreams you quietly buried. You thought it was fear, you thought it was doubt, you thought it was bad luck, but it was something deeper, something quieter, something that has been pulling the strings the entire time. Let me tell you a story. A man spends his life working hard, providing for his family, doing everything he believes he's supposed to do. On the outside, he looks successful. People admire him. But inside, there's a nagging voice that never shuts up. Whenever he thinks about chasing a new idea, the voice says, "Who are you to do that?" Whenever he thinks about standing out, the voice whispers, "You're not ready, you're not capable." Whenever he dreams of more, the voice crushes it with 5 simple words, "You're not enough for this." And so, year after year, he stays where he is. Not because he lacks talent, not because he lacks opportunity, but because he believes the voice. And here's where it hits home: you have your own version of that voice. It may not use the same words, but it delivers the same poison. I'm not smart enough, I'm not strong enough, I'm not lucky enough, I'm not worthy enough. Over time, it doesn't just sound like a thought, it sounds like the truth. It sounds like your own voice. And once you believe it, you stop fighting it, you accept it, you let it script your entire life. This is the moment of clarity. The one belief that's been secretly controlling your entire life is the belief that you are not enough. Not good enough, not capable enough, not worthy enough. That's the code running in the background of your mind. That's the filter twisting every decision you make. That's the invisible hand steering you towards smaller, safer, weaker versions of yourself. Think about it. Every time you avoided a risk, it was because the belief whispered, "You can't handle it." Every time you played small, it was because the belief told you you don't deserve bigger. Every time you gave up before you started, it was because the belief laughed, "Why even try? You'll never measure up." This belief has been running like a virus inside your operating system, corrupting everything it touches, convincing you that your limits are real when they're nothing but illusions. And the payoff, the liberating truth is this: the moment you see the belief clearly, it loses some of its power. Because now, instead of living under its shadow, you can face it, you can call it out, you can stop confusing it with your identity. The belief is not you, it never was. It's a parasite that attached itself to you long ago. And now you have the choice to cut it off. But awareness alone won't save you. Naming the belief is just the beginning. If you stop here, the belief will adapt, it will shift, it will creep back into your story and tighten its grip again. That's why the next step is everything. You have to dismantle it piece by piece until the voice no longer has a place in your life. Chapter 7, Breaking the Chains. Now that you've seen the belief, you can never unsee it. I am not enough. Those 4 words have been steering your life for years, and now they're out in the open. But naming it is only the first step. You can't just expose the chains, you have to break them. Because if you don't, the belief will crawl back into the shadows and tighten its grip until you forget this moment of clarity ever happened. Here's the truth: this belief was never born inside you. It was installed. It was planted by experiences you didn't ask for, by voices you didn't choose, by moments that cut too deep. Maybe it was a parent who told you you'd never amount to anything. Maybe it was a teacher who embarrassed you in front of a classroom. Maybe it was a failure that left a scar so deep you swore you'd never try again. One by one, those moments piled up, and together they formed the sentence that has haunted you ever since. I am not enough. The tension is this: beliefs like this don't die easily. They're sticky. They burrow deep. Even when you think you've moved past them, they show up in disguise. You tell yourself you're just being practical. You say you're just not the type of person to do certain things. You say you're waiting for the right time. But underneath those excuses, the belief is alive and well, feeding on your hesitation, feeding on your fear, feeding on every moment you settle instead of stretch. So how do you break it? You need 3 weapons. The first is awareness. The belief is strongest when it hides in silence. The moment you call it out, "That's not me," that's the old belief, you weaken it. You separate it from your identity. You stop confusing the parasite for the host. The second weapon is replacement. You can't just pull a weed and leave the soil empty. You have to plant something stronger in its place. This means creating a new belief to live by. I am enough. I have always been enough, and I can grow into more. It feels awkward at first, even fake, But every time you repeat it, every time you lean into it, you begin to rewire the script in your head. And the third weapon is daily proof. Because a belief doesn't die from words alone, it dies from evidence. You need to show yourself every single day that the old belief is a lie. That means doing one deliberate action that contradicts it. Speak up when the belief says stay silent. Step forward when the belief says hold back. Try when the belief says you'll fail. Every action becomes proof. And with enough proof, the chains crack. The payoff is this: you don't have to stay enslaved to the belief. You don't have to keep letting it run your life. You can dismantle it, challenge it, replace it, and prove it wrong over and over until it loses its grip for good. And once the chains begin to fall, something extraordinary happens. For the first time, you can imagine a life without the lie. A life where you no longer wake up under the weight of I am not enough, but instead wake up free. Chapter 8. Life without the lie. Imagine waking up one morning and realizing the voice is gone. No whisper telling you you're not ready. No shadow casting doubt on every dream. No invisible hand steering you back into the cage. Just silence. For the first time in your life, you can hear your own thoughts without interference. You feel lighter, freer, more alive. This is what life looks like without the lie. You walk into a room and you don't shrink. You speak and you don't second-guess your words before they leave your mouth. You look at opportunities. And instead of saying, that's not for me, you say, why not me? You stop seeing walls and start seeing doors. You stop asking for permission and start giving yourself authority. Here's the tension: most people will never taste this freedom. They'll go their entire lives dragging the weight of I am not enough behind them. They'll keep their heads down, keep their voices quiet, keep their dreams small. And when the end comes, they'll look back with the most painful sentence of all: I could have, but I didn't. That regret is the cost of living under the lie. That regret is the price of never breaking free. But you don't have to pay that price. You can choose differently. Without the lie, your future looks nothing like your past. Without the lie, you can create without apology, love without fear, and step into spaces you once thought were off limits. Without the lie, you no longer measure yourself against who you used to be. You measure yourself against who you're becoming. The payoff is this: when you break free from I am not enough, you stop living as a smaller version of yourself and start living as the person you were always meant to be. You don't just survive your years, you shape them. You don't just move through time, you leave a mark on it. But freedom doesn't sustain itself automatically. A life without the lie only lasts if you anchor it with action. Because without a daily practice, the old belief will try to creep back in. That's why the next step is critical. It's the habit that proves, day after day, that you are enough. Chapter 9. The daily practice freedom begins with awareness, but it only lasts with proof. You can name the belief, you can break the chains, but unless you anchor it with action, the old voice will return. It will whisper in hesitation, creep back in when you're tired, when life shakes you. That's why you need more than words. You need evidence. A daily practice that reminds you, I am enough. Here's how it works. Every day, commit to one deliberate, meaningful action that contradicts the lie. Not 10 things, not a massive plan, just one. When the voice says, don't speak up, you speak anyway. When it says, you'll fail, you try anyway. Each action becomes proof. Each action becomes a weapon. The danger is this: if you stop, the belief grows back like a weed. You've seen it before. You try something bold for a week, maybe a month, and then you slip back into routine. And once the momentum fades, the voice gets louder. That's how people live the same year over and over and call it a life. But when you practice this daily, everything shifts. At first, it feels fragile, like you're faking it. But with each action, you build evidence. Slowly, your identity changes. You stop saying you're enough, you start knowing it, living it, becoming it. One action a day compounds into an entirely different life. After 30 days, 30 proofs. After a year, 365 moments outside the lie. After 5 years, you won't even recognize the person who once thought they weren't enough. The one belief that's been secretly controlling your life is this: I am not enough. It has whispered in your doubts, shaped your choices, and kept your dreams small. But it was never yours. It was given to you, and now you can let it go. Replace it with this: I am enough, and I will make today matter. One deliberate action each day is all it takes. With every step, you break the cage, rewrite the script, and prove the lie wrong. Because the real tragedy isn't running out of time, it's wasting the time you still have.